There's the art of the deal, then there's the bloody detail of a drone strike. A bus transporting workers in the central Ukrainian city of Marhanets was hit last night. 9 people were killed, part of a wave of attacks. One of Donald Trump's self-described big, beautiful deals, ending the war in Ukraine in 24 hours. And as the world approaches 2,400 hours of Trump Mark II, here was the scene in Kharkiv last night.
Smile.
J.D. Vance, on a trip to India, was talking up a US proposal involving freezing the front lines and a land swap, but also more than just a hint of looming exasperation.
We've issued a very explicit proposal to both the Russians and the Ukrainians, and it's time for them to either say yes or for the United States to walk away from this process.
The Financial Times and others are reporting that Putin's offer to Trump includes redrawing the Ukrainian map along current front lines and giving up territorial claims on land not already captured. Armata! A pitch aimed at securing US recognition of Russia's annexation of Crimea. The Ukrainian Deputy Prime Minister tweeted this today.
Ukraine is ready to negotiate, but not to surrender. Our people will not accept a frozen conflict disguised as peace. We will never recognise the occupation of Crimea.
It all comes as Trump's top team of diplomats were a no-show at talks aimed at securing a ceasefire in London today. Late last night, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Special Envoy Steve Witkoff pulled out of a meeting organised by the Foreign Secretary. The reasons aren't clear. The upshot, though, embarrassment for Whitehall and the perceived sidelining of European governments by the US.
One thing that, amongst many actually these days, that Washington and Moscow have in common is they both believe in doing some form of deal over the heads of the Ukrainians and power deals between the big players. And Europe is not considered to be a big player, and Ukraine is considered to be an awkward player. So this does very much fit into their worldview.
To underscore the point, Steve Witkoff will meet Putin this week, their 4th substantial meeting about ending the war.
You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III.
Donald Trump's opinion of Zelensky as a man and negotiator is no secret.
This war would have been over in 2 weeks.
In 3 days, I heard it from Putin, in 3 days.
In the last few hours, chided him again on social media, said the Ukrainian president's refusal to recognize Russia's occupation of Crimea was, quote, an inflammatory statement from a man who had no cards to play. Team Trump appears to be losing its patience with this process, perhaps hemorrhaging focus and attention. Ukrainians, and indeed Russians on the battlefield, are hemorrhaging something else.
Well, I'm joined now by former British Army General Sir Richard Sheriff, who was NATO's Deputy Supreme Allied Commander between 2011 and 2014. Thank you for joining us. Where do you think this peace process, if you can call it that, has got to?
I think it's at the buffers. This isn't a peace process. This so-called proposal from the Americans trying to force it down the throats of the Ukrainians will never lead to lasting peace. The only thing that's going to lead to lasting peace is when Russia is forced to accept that they will never, ever get Ukraine as in their sights. And the only way that's going to be achieved is if Russia is defeated on the battlefield.
I mean, it does seem as though America is positioning itself to blame Ukraine for intransigence while still talking to Putin.
Yeah, America is effectively, if this deal goes through, it's signaling that America is effectively an ally of Russia, because this deal is exactly what Putin wants. And it's giving on a plate to Putin everything that he has been fighting for. And as I said earlier, it's not going to lead to lasting peace. It will only allow Putin to rebuild, re-establish himself with American help, thanks to the economic cooperation in the deal, to have another go at Ukraine and then move on elsewhere. And this signals, frankly, the the end of any prospect of transatlantic peace, the end of peace in the Euro-Atlantic area for decades to come if it goes through. And the so what out of all this is that America, frankly, if it wants to walk away, good, it should. Europe should just take over now and say, we're not prepared to accept this. Europe's got to find the balls to do this and say, we are going to do whatever it takes to support Ukraine.
But what does taking over mean? I mean, the cancellation of the Quad meeting in London today of foreign ministers sort of illustrated how out of it Europe really is at the moment.
Well, what it means is, as I say, Europe's got to find the strength, the moral courage, the leadership to tell America, frankly, to do what it wants to do and get away from the scene, and to send a resounding signal to President Zelensky and the Ukrainians, in line with all the platitudes we've heard about we're with you for 100 years and we can never allow Russia to win in Ukraine. Now it's got to put some meat on those words and really put its shoulder to the wheel and recognize that this is not just about Ukrainian peace, it's about European peace and security for decades to come. And if Russia gets away with this, we will, at some stage, be fighting Russia as a continent.
Right, but in terms of the practical steps for the British government and others, is it a question of stepping up the supply of arms to Ukraine, in your view, or should they still be continuing those talks about the coalition of the willing and about putting boots on the ground in some form, whether it's in training or actual war fighting?
Yeah, I mean, this is the issue. And in terms of practical steps, firstly, there needs to be some clear thinking that the only way there will be peace long term in the Euro-Atlantic area and for Europe as a continent is when, as I said, Russia has recognized it'll never get Ukraine. The only way to achieve that, and this requires some strategic thinking from the European governments, to recognize that Russia has to be, or that Ukraine has to be supported in defeating Russia. And when you put together a strategy, you then start thinking about the ways and the means required to achieve that strategy. And part of it is all the weapons, equipment, ammunition required. Part of it is the reform of the Ukrainian armed forces. Part of it is building up our own military industrial base and recognizing that we need to demonstrate strength, and that is going to require enormous effort, enormous sacrifice, and leadership. And it'll be tough. But unless we do it, frankly, we're signing not only Ukraine's death knell for the future, but Europe's too.
I mean, if America effectively ends up walking away, it will be also, as you point out, effectively on a different side to Britain when it comes to this particular issue. And I wonder what you make of the current US Defense Secretary and all the questions around his reliability, or the leaking of his plans on various WhatsApp groups. I mean, how does Britain treat America as a reliable partner militarily in this current situation?
Well, America has walked away. America walked away at the Munich Security Conference when it said it would not underwrite European security. We're living in a new world, and America absolutely has walked away and cannot be trusted as a reliable ally. And as for Hegseth and his security breaches, well, that's something for the Americans to sort out, but it does not send any signal of reliability or competence, frankly.
Sir Richard Sheriff, thank you very much indeed.